What's going on? Social Studies 9. This is take 2 of this video. I just made an 11-minute video and then found out that the sound didn't work. So that's pretty awesome. So hopefully I can keep it just as sweet the second time through. Today you're going to be watching 2 videos. Make this first one, take a little break, come back, watch the second one. We're going to try and plow through a couple today. We're going to be starting chapter 5 today. Hopefully you all finished your chapter 4 work, the Muffins for Granny movie, and then the Muffins for Granny writing assignment, and then chapter 3 workbook. If you have to pick one of those, like, do them both, but if you have to spend more time on one, spend more time on the Muffins for Granny writing, okay? Because that's where we're trying to make our focus going to the end of the year is just our writing and our reading. Yeah. So, as always, if you have any questions, you can always find me on the Google Classroom, or you can always email me. I like to think that I've been pretty good about responding to all you guys. I haven't heard from a lot of you. So if you have anything, please just let me know. I'm here to help. Let's get going. Hopefully take 2, which is hopefully better than take 1. So let's go. So in chapter 5, we're going to talk about immigration laws and policies. Specifically, you need to be able to come back at the end of this chapter and be able to answer this question. How well do Canada's immigration laws and policies respond to immigration issues? Okay, and you're probably saying to yourself, well, I don't know any immigration issues. We're going to talk about that. I want you to know the issues. Do you think that our laws and our policies respond pretty well to that? Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about today. So first things first, if you want to become a Canadian citizen and you were not born in this country, so I was born in this country, I'm a Canadian citizen. Some of you were probably born in this country, you're Canadian citizens, but if you were not born in this country and you want to become one, you have to pass a written test. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to go to this website right here, just click on that, and then on the left-hand side, you'll see this little toggle, set your quiz to 20 questions, start it. You don't have to tell me what you got or anything. If you want to, that's awesome, great. But take your test. These are practice Canadian citizenship tests. So go ahead, do that, come back, I'll be waiting right here for you. Welcome back. I'm curious as to how many of you got the mandatory 70% in order to successfully complete your mission and become a Canadian citizen. I'm venturing to guess that most of you did not get 70%, and I bet you a bunch of you even failed this test. So that's interesting. So you got to ask yourself, is that a fair test? Should it be mandatory to become a Canadian citizen? Right? Many of you are Canadian citizens, and many of you did not pass a test, and even more of you did not get the 70%. So how's that fair? In order to immigrate to Canada, should you be forced to learn this material? Some people would say yes, some people would say no. I'm not saying there's one way or another. That's up to you to decide. Right? But again, many of you are Canadian, and many of you did not get the 70%. So how can we expect someone who is not born in this country to get that? And should they have to? Is it really important that you know some of the history of Canada to become a citizen? Some would say yes. Some would say no. So what is immigration? Immigration is moving from one country to another, right? So many of your parents and grandparents are from another country. Like I said, my grandparents came here from England. My sister lives in England right now. She went back because we qualified for dual citizenship, so she's in Liverpool. Many of you probably have friends that were born in another country. I have friends that are born in another country. So ask yourself, ask them, ask your parents, ask your grandparents, ask your friends, what did they have to do in order to move here? Are they Canadian citizens now? Some of them might be trying to be, some of them might not be. That's okay either way. Some of them are just landed immigrants, some of them are just green cards, some of them are just permanent residents. They don't have to become Canadian citizens. Should they have to become Canadian citizens? I don't know. That's up for you to decide. But ask them, like, why would they move here? Why would someone want to move to Canada? Now, the hint that I'm giving you there is QOL, and if we were in class, we'd discuss this. But I'm just going to tell you now, QOL just stands for quality of life. People want to move here to increase their and their family's quality of life. So, some terms you need to know: immigration, immigration law, immigration policy, demographic. Immigration law is just, immigration, my fault, is the process of people establishing homes and often citizenship in a country that is not their native land, which we talked about. Immigration law says who's allowed here, and policy is the sets and procedures based on the laws, right? So the law says who can come here, and the policy is what steps we have to take in order to meet the law. Demographics are certain characteristics within a population, which we'll talk about, okay? So if we look at, say, Spruce Grove versus Northern Edmonton, versus New York versus California versus Idaho versus Saskatchewan, all of their populations will have certain characteristics, and that's called demographics, right? So it might be talking about wealth in a community, ethnic backgrounds in a community, dogs. How many dogs people have dogs in a community, right? They're just characteristics within a population. And the thing there you see a link there. That's for the Williams video, which you've seen before. It's a 10-minute, just kind of brief introduction to this chapter. It does a fantastic job. It's a much nicer video than I could ever make. It's pretty cool. So give that a go. It's not the most stimulating video, I'll admit, but it is very informative, and you should give it a go before you go any further. So we're going to talk about what criteria does Canada use when it's accepting immigrants or refugees. So we're going to look at immigration legislation, the point system, and factors influencing immigration policy. So first thing we're going to talk about is the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act, which I will refer to as IRPA from now on, just because it's fun to say. This is our most recent immigration legislation. It was established in 2002. It classifies potential immigrants into categories and establishes criteria for each category. We're talking about the categories in the next slide. Every year, about 170,000 people become new citizens of Canada. Okay, and that's important to know. 170,000 each year. Some people say that's a lot. Some people say it's too many. Some people say that's not enough. But one thing you should know is that immigration, in terms of an purely economic standpoint, is really good for us. Immigration contributes vastly to our economy. These are the categories which we talked about last page that fit into IRCPA. Okay, so if you want to immigrate to this country, you have to fit into one of these 4 categories. The biggest one is something called the economic immigrants. These are skilled workers and our business people. Basically, we want to try and bring people into Canada which can immediately contribute to Canadian society, right? So they're doctors, they're lawyers, they're millwrights, they're pipe fitters, right? They're people that are skilled, have training, and can immediately contribute to Canadian economy and don't need a lot of handouts or help from government or other organizations. Economic immigrants are the biggest category. They're 55% of all immigrants. So 55% of that 170,000 that come in every year are economic immigrants. The next one is refugees. Refugees are people that are escaping. They're escaping war, they're escaping other social conditions, and they're trying to come to Canada. Most recent one that I can think of is the Syrian, right? We have people come to Canada from Syria. They're trying to get away from war. They're trying to find a better place for their family. Refugees make up 13% of all immigrants that come to Canada. The next one is family class. Family class are people that are trying to immigrate to Canada that already have family living here, right? What's nice about family class, just like economic immigrants, is they can come to Canada and they have somebody to help them, right? They've got family here that can help them get situated, that can help them find a place to live, that can help them financially. They don't depend on government handouts or organizational handouts. Refugees need help, obviously, right? They have nobody here. Many times they don't speak the language, they're escaping, they need help, right? So we're happy to help them, we're happy to bring them in, but it's not our first choice, okay? And then the other one is just other, which is 4% of all immigrants. These are, again, humanitarian or compassionate reasons. Now, objectives of IRPA, right? So we want to bring refugees in, but we have some things that we want to make sure are happening as we bring them in, okay? We want to make sure that we're keeping Canada not only multicultural, but we're keeping it bilingual, right? We talked about last chapter how important it was that we keep the Francophone, and we keep the French language, and we keep French culture, right? And that can be really hard to do if everybody that lives in your area doesn't speak French. So we like bringing in immigrants that can speak French. We like, if we tell people if they're going to be moving to Montreal or whatever, they have to be able to speak French, because we want to keep Canada bilingual. It's really important. We're really unique as a country. I think we're the only one, or maybe one of 2, that has 2 official languages. And Quebec is kind of on an island, and surrounded by English. They get bombarded by the United States. They get bombarded by the rest of Canada, and it's really, really hard for you to keep your language when you're just surrounded by English all the time, right? So we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can with our immigration policies to keep Canada bilingual. We want to make sure that we pursue social, cultural, and economic benefits for all Canadians, right? If we're bringing in immigrants, we want to make sure that they can contribute right away, or at least quickly, to Canada, right? There's economic benefits to bringing them in. There's cultural benefits to bringing them in. There's social benefits to bringing them in. We want to make sure we develop official minority language communities, right? If you go to Edmonton, you'll see pockets of language communities, right? There's Chinatown, obviously, is the easiest one to think of that you guys might know of. But there's other places in Edmonton where you'll find, like, big Muslim community or a big Syrian community, or whatever. We want to make sure that we're developing that, right? We're bringing in different people to contribute socially to and culturally to our country. We want to support economic development across Canada. Now, you'll see later in the chapter why you could see maybe Europe is not doing a great job of this, but we want to make sure that immigrants that we bring in are contributing across the country, right? That they're bringing something to our economy, right? And not just into the big pockets of Canada, but across Canada. From one category, remember, family category, we want to make sure that we reunite families, right? Which I think is a great thing. We want to reunite families that have been separated for whatever reason. So we want to bring them in and try and reunite them, bring them back together. And we want to make sure, lastly, that any immigrants that come to our country are successfully integrated, right? They're contributing, they're part of our country. They're not just, I don't want to sound terrible right now, but whatever it is, that they're coming in and they are successfully being part of Canada and Canadian society, and they're contributing to our country in many ways that they can find. Okay? So, a little something to think about here, real quick. In 2007, which is a long time ago now, Canada accepted more than 250,000 immigrants. You remember, on average, we take 170,000. So in 2007, we took 250,000, the highest amount in 50 years. Why do you think this might be? Now, again, if we were in class, with some careful discussion and prodding and some other little questions at you, I'm sure we would come to the answer. But since we're not there, I'm just going to tell you, okay? In 2007, we had a massive oil boom, and Canada was doing very well, specifically because of Alberta. In 2007, if Alberta had separated from Canada and become its own country, Alberta would have been the third richest country in the world. And that was because of the oil boom. And we didn't have enough workers for the oil. We weren't even close. Like, we did not have enough people in Alberta to make our economy function. So immigration went through the roof. Now, it does not mean that 250,000 people came straight to Alberta. That's not the case. As you know, if Alberta's doing well oil and Saskatchewan doing well oil, then Canada's doing well. So we brought in a whole bunch more immigrants that year to help keep the economy going, because we needed workers. We needed skilled workers. And again, a lot of those came to Alberta, but not all of them. Okay, so that's it for this video right now. It's a little longer than I wanted it to be, but sorry. Take a pause, take a 10-minute break, and there'll be a second video coming up here right away here. So I'll see you guys in a little bit. Bye.